sessions, multiple adjournments. Uproar in Parliament over justice for Manipur. To compel Prime Minister Modi to speak on Manipur. Opposition moves no confidence motion.
प्राइम मिनिस्टर को सदन में खींचकर लाने के लिए एक ही हमारे पास औजार बचे हुए हैं, वो नो कॉन्फिडेंस मोशन।
नो कॉन्फिडेंस मोशन का जो अंत में कंक्लूजन होता है वो माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी द्वारा किया जाता है।
Will Prime Minister bend to India? Our top focus at 6 p.m. Prime.
Good evening. You're watching 6 p.m. Prime here on India Today. I'm Akshata Nandagopal, back after a brief break to get you all the top stories that we're tracking over the next 1 hour. We'll begin with what's happening in Parliament today. The disruptions continue as this time the opposition, India, has put the focus on a no-trust motion against the NDA government. But with numbers really not on their side, is this just a ploy to get the Prime Minister to speak on Manipur? That's a question I'll be putting forward to Gaurav Gogoi of the Congress, who joins us live on 6 p.m. Prime. He's the one who moved the no-trust motion. And that and much more coming your way. Here are the headlines first. Opposition's no-confidence motion accepted for debate. Lok Sabha Speaker accepts motion from Gaurav Gogoi. Date of debate to be announced soon. Fresh violence erupts in Manipur. Shops and houses burnt in More district of Manipur. Miscreants fell stones. Cops resort to tear gas deployment. We'll get you a ground report. Delhi Ordnance Dangle to kick off in Parliament. Home Minister Amit Shah to introduce Ordnance Bill in Lok Sabha on Monday. (1984) anti-Sikh riots case continues to haunt Jagdish Titler. Delhi court takes cognizance of charge sheet, directs Congress leader to appear before court on 5th August. It's a mega India Today impact. Suomoto case and FIR registered against 3 girls for putting hidden cameras in the college washroom. FIR also registered against administration of the college. And Defence Minister Rajnath Singh's big warning to Pakistan says just because India doesn't cross the LOC doesn't mean it can't.
भारतीय मूल्यों के प्रति हमारा पूरा विश्वास है और अंतर्राष्ट्रीय कानूनों के प्रति हमारी प्रतिबद्धता है। उस समय अगर हमने एलओसी पार नहीं किया तो इसका मतलब यह नहीं था कि हम एलओसी नहीं पार कर सकते थे।
Let's begin with breaking news that's coming in from the national capital. A week ago, we saw how dire the situation was in Delhi as several parts of the capital was underwater. Arvind Kejriwal has now been confronted and questioned during a civic body meet on the plight the Delhiites had to undergo and why infrastructure wasn't better in the national capital to ensure we could avoid such a situation. And Arvind Kejriwal walked off when he was confronted with questions on why there was no meeting that's happened of the flood panel that's been set up to address particularly these issues. Let me play out for you that sequence of how Kejriwal got up and walked off.
महिलाओं के ऊपर करे हुए आप सुविधा कैंप लगते हैं अरविंद केजरीवाल जी, सुविधा कैंप के मुद्दे पे नहीं बोल रहे। बताएंगे अरविंद केजरीवाल जी कहाँ थे आप? आपके लिए लालू यादव जो भ्रष्टाचार चारा घोटाला में लिप्त थे उनसे गठबंधन जरूरी है। शरद पवार उनके साथ बैठ के करप्शन जरूरी है। आप मीटिंग छोड़ के भागना चाह रहे हैं अरविंद केजरीवाल जी। आप अरविंद केजरीवाल जी मीटिंग छोड़ के भाग रहे हैं। फिर मत भागिए, महिलाओं के इशू पे आप जवाब दीजिए अरविंद केजरीवाल जी। भागिए मत अरविंद केजरीवाल जी, भागिए मत अरविंद केजरीवाल जी।
Okay, so that is the sequence where Arvind Kejriwal right after stood up and walked off. This was a civic body meet. Let's play out for you what civic body officials had to say about that huddle, how they questioned Kejriwal, and he got up, refused to answer those questions.
बड़ी हैरानी की बात है, एनडीएमसी के इतिहास में आज पहली बार ऐसा हुआ कि जब हमने अरविंद केजरीवाल जी से पूछा, मैंने पूछा, हमारे साथ हमारे मेंबर विशाखा जी, गिरीश जी, सतीश जी, हम सब थे, मैंने पूछा, मैंने दिखाया कि भाई एपेक्स कमेटी फ्लड कंट्रोल की बनी हुई है, उस एपेक्स कमेटी को आप चेयर करते हैं जिसमें फ्लड कंट्रोल के लिए जिसमें मेजर्स और इनिशिएटिव ले जाते हैं। आप लोगों को जानकर हैरानी होगी, वो कहते हैं कि रोम जल रहा था और नीरव बांसुरी बजा रहा था। तो मैंने कहा अरविंद केजरीवाल जी से कि रोम जल रहा था, नीरव बांसुरी बजा रहा था कि तर्ज पे दिल्ली डूब रही थी। मैं पूर्वी दिल्ली रहता हूं, बुरा हाल था। मैंने अरविंद केजरीवाल जी से कहा कि आप ये बता दीजिए आपने फ्लड कंट्रोल की मीटिंग क्यों नहीं ली, तो अरविंद केजरीवाल जी के पास जवाब नहीं था। जब मैंने कहा अरविंद केजरीवाल जी जवाब भी देना पड़ेगा, जनता से जुड़े मुद्दों का हिसाब भी देना पड़ेगा।
Let's bring in Himanshu Mishra on this broadcast. Himanshu, explain for us what happened in that meeting. Why did Arvind Kejriwal refuse to take any of the questions? And, at this point, has there been any sort of statement that's coming from AAP?
देखिए, बिल्कुल कुलजीत चहल जो है एनडीएमसी के मेंबर हैं और उन्होंने जब एनडीएमसी की बैठक हुई तो उन्होंने महिलाओं से जुड़े सवाल पूछे जो आरटीआई के जवाब में है कि आपने अभी तक महिलाओं के लिए नई दिल्ली क्षेत्र का आप प्रतिनिधित्व करते हैं एज ए विधायक के तौर पर, तो आपने क्या क्या किया? आपने कोई काम महिलाओं के लिए नहीं किया, उनकी सिक्योरिटी के लिए, उनके लिए कोई अलग से व्यवस्था नहीं की है। और उसके साथ साथ जो है कुलजीत चहल ने कहा कि जब दिल्ली डूब रही थी तो आपने उससे पहले एपेक्स कमेटी की क्यों नहीं मीटिंग की थी? तो इन सवालों का आपको जवाब देना पड़ेगा। अरविंद केजरीवाल जो दिल्ली के मुख्यमंत्री और एनडीएमसी के चेयरमैन हैं, वो वहां से वॉकआउट करके चले गए। यानी कि एक बार फिर से भारतीय जनता पार्टी के जो कुलजीत चहल और एनडीएमसी के मेंबर हैं, उन्होंने सवाल पूछे। इससे पहले भी 2 बार ऐसा ही हुआ है, जब एनडीएमसी की बैठक होती है, कुलजीत चहल या अन्य मेंबर्स जब इस तरीके के सवाल जो है अरविंद केजरीवाल से पूछते हैं तो वो उसका जवाब नहीं देते हैं और वो वहां से वॉकआउट कर जाते हैं। इससे पहले भी पानी को लेकर, पानी की किल्लत को लेकर जो है सवाल पूछे गए थे एनडीएमसी की बैठक में, तब भी इसी तरीके का माहौल था और अरविंद केजरीवाल बैठक छोड़ के चले गए।
Asked particularly about why there was no meeting of the flood panel that was set up. Kejriwal is in fact the head of that panel. No meeting has happened, and that's what he was asked about. Refused to answer. Thanks, Himanshu, for getting us all of those details. All right, let's move on to our top story this evening on 6 p.m. Prime. What's played out in Parliament? Well, the official introduction of the no trust motion was done. The Lok Sabha Speaker has accepted the motion, considering that it met the brief of a minimum amount of support required. But beyond that, the Speaker is yet to decide when exactly the debate will happen. The opposition has one goal here. They want the Prime Minister to come forward in both houses and speak on what's happening in Manipur.
वो शुभकामनाएं मैं आज फिर देना चाहता हूं कि आप इतनी तैयारी करो कि 2023 में फिर से आपको अविश्वास प्रस्ताव लाने का मौका मिले।
This prediction by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, done 4 years ago, is coming true. The Parliament witnessing yet another no-trust battle. Waging a big war, the opposition India alliance moved a no-trust motion against centre over Manipur violence. The motion was weighed and almost immediately accepted by the Lok Sabha Speaker, paving the way for a vote within 10 days. The last no-trust vote against Modi government was in 2018, which the ruling combined sailed through with a big margin. Opposition claims it was the only option before it to get the Prime Minister Narendra Modi to speak on Manipur.
We want justice for Manipur, and India Alliance is for Manipur. And that is why we have presented the government with this no confidence motion to remind the Prime Minister of his constitutional, moral and ethical responsibility towards the state of affairs in Manipur.
अगर अविश्वास प्रस्ताव लाया जा रहा है लोकसभा में तो इस स्वागत योग्य कदम है। इसके जरिए कम से कम प्रधानमंत्री को मजबूर होना पड़ेगा मणिपुर की हिंसा पर जवाब देने के लिए।
वो हर तरीके से प्रजातंत्र और पार्लियामेंट्री डेमोक्रेसी का हनन करने में लगी हुई है, उसका गला घोटने को भी तैयार है। उम्मीद करते हैं प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी मणिपुर की घटना को लेकर और मणिपुर को लेकर सदन में चर्चा करेंगे।
The government has claimed that it is ready for a debate on Manipur violence and only Home Minister Amit Shah will reply.
सरकार हर परिस्थिति के लिए तैयार है। हम तो चाहते हैं मणिपुर पे चर्चा हो। कल गृह मंत्री जी ने भी लोकसभा में फिर बोला, क्योंकि इनका विषय सत्र शुरू होने से पहले यही था कि मणिपुर पे चर्चा कराओ। अब चर्चा कराने की जब हमने सहमति भरी तो रूल्स ले आए कि प्रधानमंत्री जी आकर के चर्चा शुरू करें। ये मुझे लगता बहाना है।
But it is not just the India alliance. Even BRS separately moved no trust motion against Prime Minister, which OAC's AIMIM says it will support.
जो देश में जो मणिपुर का जो इश्यू घटना चल रहा है, उसका ऊपर जो है चर्चा होना चाहिए। देश के प्रधानमंत्री का मुंह से अगर ये बात आने से देश के लोगों के लिए थोड़ा शांति भी रहेगा, अच्छा रहेगा बोल के हम लोग काफी कोशिश किया था। आज के दिन में जो है ना, ये नो कॉन्फिडेंस मोशन मूव किया है।
It is the day 5 of the parliament and it was stalled yet again with opposition leaders asking for Prime Minister Modi's statement on Manipur in parliament. But amid raging India alliance versus Modi government, who will blink first? With Paulami Saha and Mausami Singh in New Delhi, Bureau Report, India Today.
And leader of opposition to generate discipline and decorum in their members. Please take your seat.
Let's bring in on this broadcast our National Affairs editor Rahul Srivastava to discuss what's played out in Parliament so far. Rahul, good evening. Focusing on the no trust motion, do you believe, Rahul, that the reason, the motive behind this kind of motion being brought in by the opposition is merely to get the Prime Minister to speak? Because numbers-wise, it's not really stacking up in their favour.
Akshita, technically, I will say this is for the first time in a very bitter, acrimonious parliament. No confidence motion has been moved to make a prime minister speak up on a particular issue. In 1963, the third Lok Sabha had a motion by Mr. Acharya J.B. Kripalani against the Jawaharlal Nehru government, because Acharya Kripalani wanted to prove a point to the government but not make the prime minister speak. There has been no such history of an opposition coming together only to use a no confidence motion as an instrument to make the prime minister speak. Remember what it also does, that it may not happen, the numbers are staggering for the government, but it insulates the government for the next 6 months. No trust motion. The Modi government does not need to prove its strength in the House for the next 6 months from here on. So it's a gamble taken by the opposition, but what the idea is to make the prime minister speak, because see what has happened, that it has been moved by Gaurav Gogoi. Gaurav Gogoi comes from Northeast, one of the most prominent faces of the Congress or the opposition that India combined 26 parties from the Northeast. Now when Gaurav Gogoi moves it, it's at eminence. So he will be triggering the debate on the no confidence motion. That means it's a signal to the Northeast, where the BJP right now seems to be struggling because of what has happened in Manipur. Also, MNF, Mizo National Front, is an ally of the BJP, and they have a very strong cookie base, and that is why they will be also watching out which way to go. The eventual staggering numbers, since they are with the government, there is one issue that the government eventually can go out and say after the trust vote that, see, we told you the House, sense of the House is with the Narendra Modi government. Remember, in this very critical there are three basic components of parliament right now. One is a 329 odd number strength of the NDA plus its along with its allies.
Sure.
The second is the 141 odd numbers of the India 26 party coalition. And the third is a 63 odd number independents and BJD, BRS, YSRCP and others. Now, since BRS has already given a no trust motion, we were to see what kind of overlap happens. If the government does win away a BJD or YSRCP or this abstain, means that the government numbers compared to the opposition which has moved the trust motion will be staggering. But the opposition does get to prove a point. In this one, it will have Prime Minister speaking. Second, that template, whatever the Prime Minister says or doesn't say, will become a template for Northeast or all over the country, that somewhere there is a sense of failure of this government. I think if also it will be a good statement for India, the 26 party combined and the rest of the players.
Interesting perspective. Thanks very much, Rahul, for joining us here at 6 p.m. Prime and essentially decoding what's playing out in Parliament, what perhaps is the strategy of India. Rahul Srivastava referred to Gaurav Gogoi, the man who has essentially put forward, submitted this no trust motion. Joining us here on India Today on 6 p.m. Prime is Gaurav Gogoi, Congress MP from the Northeast, symbolically has filed this motion. Gaurav, good evening. Thank you for joining us. I'd like to begin with the same question that I put forward to Rahul Srivastava, which is that with the numbers not on your side, have you decided to go ahead and submit this no trust motion with the single sole agenda of getting the Prime Minister to speak on Manipur?
It is not about numbers. What is more important is that a message of solidarity and hope goes out to the people of Manipur who feel as if they have been completely abandoned by the Prime Minister, who has chosen to remain silent for close to 80 days. If at the end of our no confidence motion, we might be defeated, but if the Prime Minister sends out a message of peace, if all political parties stand up with one voice and say that India stands with the Northeast and with the people of Manipur, that we announce a new process of dialogue amongst the various stakeholders, that even though our motion might be defeated, but for the cause of territorial integrity, for the cause of preserving humanity in Manipur and in the Northeast, I think we would have achieved a major success.
Let me put forth the BJP's argument here. They're saying, one, to your question of whether the Prime Minister has spoken, they say, look, the Prime Minister, before the monsoon session began, gave a statement of what's happening in Manipur. And besides that, the Home Minister is willing to speak. He stood up in Parliament, said, I'm willing to give a statement, we're willing to discuss this, but that the opposition has been constantly disrupting these sessions. Why is it that the Home Minister can't issue a statement on this?
The Union Home Minister went to Manipur and constituted a peace committee of 51 members, and this committee has totally failed. In fact, members of this committee have rejected the committee which has been constituted by the Union Home Minister. So his efforts have not borne fruit. More than 6,000 sophisticated weapons have been looted from police stations and are still in the hands of civilians. Therefore, it is incumbent upon the Prime Minister to make a statement. The Prime Minister chose to speak after 80 days. What was he doing before? And he only spoke because the Supreme Court Chief Justice made a scathing observation and a video went viral. Yet he addressed only one form of human right violation. But there are close to 55,000 people living in relief camps. The different communities are no longer living eye to eye. There's a complete lack of faith in the state machinery, in the law and order machinery. People are asking for the Chief Minister to resign. And it is inexplicable that a government that replaces Chief Minister 3 times, 4 times, just to benefit themselves in the election, has continued to support a Chief Minister under whose reign so many atrocities against women, tribals, young people, so many homes, under whose reign so many churches have been destroyed. And yet the Prime Minister continues, for some reason best known to himself, to support this Chief Minister.
Let's talk about the disruptions that have been happening for the last few days in Parliament. It's clear that your parties and every party part of the India alliance wants one issue to be discussed, Manipur. But is that really counterproductive right now? Because the BJP has said, look, the Prime Minister is not going to speak. And as a result of that, they're going about business as usual. They're passing their bills because they have the numbers in Lok Sabha. And so is the opposition's protest right now going unheard?
What message is the BJP trying to send the people of Manipur? That there are issues which are far more important. There are bills which are far more important than what has happened to the women. There are issues which are far more important to the complete breakdown in the relationship between the Kukis and Meiteis and Naga. What is more important than talking about this conflict which is spreading to other parts of the Northeast, Assam, Mizoram? These are states on our border. This is becoming an issue of national security and territorial integrity. And yet the BJP feel that they have other issues of more importance. The Prime Minister, instead of talking about Manipur, is talking about Chhattisgarh and East India Company. I mean, in the past, I have never seen a Prime Minister who's been so indifferent. All political parties of when they were prime ministers who faced a conflict, used to address the issue heads on. But in this particular case, I found a prime minister who takes credit for successes, but when there's a failure, he outsources them to his cabinet. He has the time to campaign in a Delhi MCD election, but does not have the time to visit Manipur and console the victims of violence. As a citizen of India, as someone from the Northeast, I am shocked. I feel abandoned. I feel isolated. I feel a sense of disconnect. And this is a feeling that is shared by many in the Northeast.
Based on what you're saying, are you making a case here for all bills, all legislations, all discussions to be put on hold and the focus to only be on Manipur in Parliament right now in this session?
Absolutely. Right now, it's a time to send a message of comfort, to try make an effort to heal the wounds. The fractions which have erupted in the communities will take decades to heal, and they still have access to sophisticated weapons. These are states on our border, and they are prone to external influences. Do we want the situation to worsen? Surprisingly, a party that champions itself on nationalism and domestic security is failing to preserve the integrity of the Northeast, is failing on law and order, is failing on domestic security, is failing the tribals, is failing the women. There is still time. There's still time for the Prime Minister to make a statement, and we hope that through this vote of no confidence, he will have the courage to stand inside Parliament and speak to the people of the nation.
The BJP, Gaurav Gogoi, is saying that at this point, they're very clear that the Home Minister is open to a discussion. The Prime Minister won't speak on this issue because he's already given a statement. At this juncture, with what's happening and the opposition, your party saying that we want the Prime Minister to speak, these endless disruptions, are we looking essentially at another washout session, at no discussion on any of the bills?
The question is, why is the Prime Minister giving more importance to his image than the dignity of the women and the tribals of Manipur? Why is the Prime Minister finding the time to inaugurate a trade and exhibition center in Delhi but not come inside Parliament? What kind of democracy are we living in? And if today this is happening in Manipur, then tomorrow it can happen in any other part of the state. Do we want to preserve the integrity of India? Do we want to alienate further the people of Manipur? Have they not suffered enough? Have they not felt enough pain? Can we not do something more?
Sure.
This is what the India Alliance is trying to do. That is why Rahul Gandhi ji visited Manipur. That is what we are trying to do.
No,
that the Prime Minister may have forgotten Manipur, but India Alliance stands with Manipur. We want justice for Manipur, and we will continue to raise the voice of Manipur inside Parliament.
My final question to you, Gaurav Gogoi. You mentioned Rahul Gandhi's visit to Manipur. You spoke of the India Alliance coming together. The constant criticism that comes your party and the Alliance's way from the BJP is, why is there pin drop silence of what's happening in a Rajasthan, in a Chhattisgarh? Why are parties not speaking out over it? Why aren't you critical of, women's safety, of law and order breakdown in these states when you speak constantly of Manipur?
What is happening in Manipur in terms of the scale of violence, the scale of human atrocity, the kind of Rwanda-like situation, the kind of internal civil war is happening nowhere else in India. And even people of India, your viewers understand that the BJP is trying to divert the attention and obfuscate the issue, trying to treat it as a law and order issue, try to treat it as an issue for the Minister of Home Affairs or for the Minister of Women and Child. For God's sake, let us give attention to Manipur. This is a very sensitive and complex part of our country. This is a potential to escalate and spread. Who are we trying to benefit? Is the BJP trying to benefit India's enemies by ignoring the Northeast? Do they not know the history of insurgency and how they were supported by external forces? What kind of government is this? And that is why we have moved the vote of no confidence motion. The government has failed to resolve the issue in Manipur, and it is their government in the state. They are taking no action. The Prime Minister continues to support a Chief Minister who's played a key role in ensuring that this conflict does not die down.
Okay. You from the northeast, from Assam, Gaurav Gogoi, have decided to go ahead with this no trust motion because you want to put the focus on a discussion and a statement from the Prime Minister. The Speaker has accepted your motion, so we'll track closely what happens in Parliament. But thank you very much for taking the time out and joining us here. And we're not taking the focus away from what's happening in Manipur. India Today's team of reporters are on the ground, and I want you to take a look now at our next ground report, extensively shot by Ashutosh Mishra from parts of Manipur that no other team has managed to reach. He tells you what's the situation currently in the state.
The moment I cross West Imphal, that's another district in the hilly terrain, and in this Limokong area, almost all these villages are wearing a deserted look. All I see only few men who are guarding their villages, putting out these amount of barricades, and these barricades have a restriction particular time for entry and exit. What these barricades are made for? हम यहाँ इतना सन्नाटा क्यों देख रहे हैं? कहाँ गए सारे लोग गांव के?
सर एक्चुअली पूरा औरत लोग और बच्चे लोग तो जहाँ सेफ है, इधर इन रिलीफ कैंप और अपना जहाँ रिलेटिव्स दूसरा इलाका में है उन लोग के पास चला गया है. अभी सिर्फ मेल सिर्फ जो बच्चा है वो लोग रह रहा है.
ये बैरिकेड लगाने की जरूरत क्यों पड़ी है?
एक्चुअली हमारा इलाका एरिया है, एक मिक्स कम्युनिटी रहता है. इसमें नागास भी है, पहले कुकी मेतेईस भी था और नेपालीस मालवारीस लोग भी है.
मेतेई रहने वाले थे वो चले गए यहाँ से.
अभी तो वो लोग चला गया.
आपके यहाँ पर भी हिंसा हुई थी, वायलेंस हुआ था यहाँ पे?
हाँ, यहाँ पे भी वायलेंस तो हुआ था, शूटिंग हुआ था. एग्जैक्टली इसमें भी हुआ था, ये विलेज में भी और उस तरफ में भी हुआ था.
कितने लोग मारे गए थे?
यहाँ लेमखोंग एरिया में 3 आदमी मर गया.
3 लोग मारे?
3 लोग मारे गए.
Who would have ever thought that there will be a buffer zone between two communities? Right behind me in the valley area, the plains, that's the farming zone for the Meitei community. Well, right behind what you see is the farming areas for the Kuki community, and there I can spot some bunkers, trenches were made which were used by the Kuki community during the peak of the violence when the firing was taking place. Now imagine the situation on the ground in this part of Manipur where the people at war against each other who have been living together, and now literally there is a buffer zone, line of control, and this kind of situation explains the furious and the ground reality of Manipur, how the situation remained tensed even after 80 days of the violence. कभी आप लोगों ने सोचा था कि 2 कम्युनिटी आप लोग एक साथ खाना खाने वाला, एक साथ सेलिब्रेशन करने वाला, ऐसा बफर जोन, लाइन ऑफ कंट्रोल बना देगा एक दूसरे के बीच में?
ये तो कभी सोचा भी नहीं था. बहुत अच्छा से रह रहा था हम लोग, पता नहीं क्या हो गया बीच में. अभी हम लोग
अभी यहाँ के जो बंकर्स वगैरह हैं वो चल रहे हैं या हटा दिए उसको?
अभी ये तो हटा दिया है गवर्नमेंट ऑर्डर के मुताबिक. जितना भी जो दिखाई देता है बंकर्स उसको हटा दो बल्कि बताया था, इसलिए उसके मुताबिक हम लोग ने सब बंकर्स को हटा दिया है.
लेकिन बफर जोन बना दिया है अपने इलाके में.
क्या करेगा सर, उपाय नहीं है, जिंदगी है, संभालना पड़ता है.
In the valley, the Meitei community have been accusing for the Kuki tribe and their guards using automatic weapons. For now, let me show you this bullet made in Limokong, as the locals said. The barrels have been filled in inside, and all the weapons that I see here lined up, this is being used by the border defense guard, which are the volunteers of these villages during the conflict, making the bunkers across the Meitei community villages. Now it is being polished, checked, cleaned. Of course, it is ready for a further conflict. We can only hope there are no further situation when these people are going to use this. But all I see are some double-barrel guns like these, which of course looks like automatic weapon, but it is not. It is double-barrel gun. And another I see is a single-barrel gun. And of course, these arms are literally in a huge number. So that indeed says about the conflict situation, but it is not only one side. We see the similar images on both the sides. Because of the conflict, many of these people have left their homes. Women, children have gone to the safer places. And those who are left here struggling for survival. The reason is, now look at these houses. There's a very old lady who's living here with the family. Almost nothing left now. But what makes it critical is they are running out of food. Now in this house, this is the only amount of rice which is left, and it is sowing season. Of course, they have to go to 12 hours to Churachandpur to bring. In other cases, usual days, just by going 3 to 4 kilometers in the near West Imphal district, there is a big market, and that have been the tradition they have been sharing. They're going to sell their vegetables, bring the dry ration here. But as far as dry ration is concerned, what I see here, some amount of rice, which this family could barely survive for another 2 to 3 days. Only vegetables because they grow locally, that's all they have. And the moment you enter in the kitchen, all I see, this is the only vegetable that they have left. Locally grown vegetable, and there I see the elder lady cooking some food in the chula. There is so that explains the situation and the plight of the poor people who are caught in the crossfire. But as far as the situation is concerned, there are some people who would speak about the current crisis. There are how many such families who are still living in this village and several other villages around, and how are they surviving?
Actually, because of this conflict, this violence, around, I should say 60 to 70% of the households are struggling to get their livelihood. Most of them, I should say, are daily wage earner, and now they are finding it hard to get 2 days a meal even.
What is the name of this lady? I see only this amount of dry ration left.
Yes, they have only this much left, and their livelihood is very, very uncertain. This is also the contribution of some goodwill people from their neighbors.
From the neighbors?
From the neighbors.
And this is situation almost all these villages?
Yeah, in most of the villages this happened.
The road behind me connects this Limakhong to Imphal Valley, which is the lifeline for the people.
All right, we're cutting out of that report, interrupting that report to get you